This episode is brought to you by Timely Presence. Grief doesn't end at the graveside, but most support does. Timely Presence helps families and friends continue showing up throughout the first year of loss with personalized remembrance gifts, timed to the days that tend to hurt most. The first holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet milestones when grief can feel especially heavy. Because the people we love deserve to be remembered beyond the funeral. And the people grieving deserve to feel supported long after the first wave of care has faded. Visit thetimelypresence.com to learn more. Welcome to the Highlight Your Healing podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Roan. Our guest is Kelly Edmondson, a nurse executive, grief advocate, founder of Timely Presence, and a mother whose life was forever changed after the loss of her son, Darius. As a healthcare leader, Kelly spent years walking alongside patients and families during some of life's most difficult moments. But when grief became her own reality, she experienced it from an entirely different perspective. Out of that journey, Kelly founded Timely Presence, a year-long sympathy gifting service created to remind grieving families that they are not forgotten through thoughtful, personalized gifts delivered at meaningful milestones throughout the first year of grief. In today's conversation, we're exploring what happens when professional experience meets personal loss, why sustained support matters long after the funeral, and how each of us can become more intentional about showing up for the people we love when they need us most. Kelly, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Highlight Your Healing.
Thank you, Shannon. I've been so looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Before we get into today's conversation, I'd love for you to just start by introducing yourself and telling us a little more about who you are and then walking us through your journey.
So I am originally from Ohio. I grew up there in a healthcare family. My grandmother was a nurse. My mom has a twin sister who's a nurse, who has a daughter who's a nurse. And then I became one. And so my introduction to nursing really happened. My oldest son, Darius, was sick as a baby. He had a tumor on his scalp and no one really knew what it was. So he had to stay a couple days extra in the hospital. And they finally determined that it would become cancerous with exposure to the sun. So when he was 8.5 months old, he had surgery to have it removed, an outpatient surgery to have it removed. He ended up infected. And so within a day, he had a fever of 105. The wound was weeping. They life flighted us to the children's hospital. And he spent days in the pediatric ICU. So I was very young. At this point, I was 19. He was very sick. And his father and I were both overwhelmed. And the nurses took such amazing care of us.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of the baby, which is expected, right? That's their job.
Right.
But they took care of us. And I said, whatever it is that makes people want to take care of people when they are weak and vulnerable and they need help, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's really the story behind how I became a nurse. And I have 25 years in the profession now.
Wow. So like you said, nurses running the family, it's like almost that innate, like wanting to care for others. It's something that's always been a part of you.
It really has. And I feel so blessed that I've been able to meet people in their most vulnerable places. I chose to nurse in a trauma ICU. So I took care of people with sudden change and loss, car accidents, fire, victims of violence. And so I spent a lot of time really in between life and death with patients and their families, and always recognized how special it was to share space with people in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have seen some of the worst, moments that families go through with their loved ones. So can you walk us through your own journey when you had to face that day where you were on the other side of that?
Yeah. So you never see it coming, right? And I thought I understood grief and loss. And January 3rd of 2023, my husband and I were actually on an empty nest celebration cruise in the Caribbean.
Mm.
And my youngest son began calling repeatedly. We were taking a nap and he was calling my husband and texting, and then my phone rang. So I said, let me get this. Something's up. And
Mm.
Mason said, I knew instantly something was wrong. Instantly. He said, I don't know how to tell you this, Mom. Darius is dead.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
And those words are so hard to understand, right? The first response is, what do you mean?
Right.
Right? What do you mean? And my son had been living with epilepsy since 18. And initially, getting a chronic diagnosis at 18 is a really tough time. You want to be independent, but suddenly you're stripped of independence. You can't
Right.
drive. You have to be careful of your surroundings. You have to get your medication regulated. But this was 10 years later. And so he had managed the disease well. He, actually had a car accident the year before on the highway driving, and so stopped driving again and was just learning how to live under new circumstances. And that night he went to his father's house. It was right after the new year, so it was still celebration mode, and left his father's house around midnight,
Mm-hmm.
went home to get ready for work the next day, and never made it. So later the coroner said they thought he died about 1, but he aspirated in his sleep. And so, an entirely different experience on the other side.
Right.
You literally, I felt like the first few weeks, the easiest way for me to describe it, as you're going through the motions of planning the service, writing an obituary, selecting the pictures for the obituary, right? Are we going to have doves or not? Is blue's his favorite color? What are we going to put blue in the ceremony? All those things, all those mechanical things. I felt like I was walking through water. It's the
Wow.
easiest way for me to describe. You're moving, but
Mm-hmm.
it's effort to do, right? Every
Right.
step is weighted, consciously weighted. And you're surrounded by people and they're all have good intentions, but you don't really understand grief, because grief is not the acknowledgement of the loss.
Right.
That's not what it is. It's the understanding of the absence. And that's different. So you don't realize that until you go to pick up your phone and call your kid. Until you look across the empty table on Thanksgiving. That's
Mm-hmm.
when you begin to understand what the loss means in your life, right? And
Right.
it's the loss of him, which is significant and still a daily effort, right?
Right.
It's a daily effort, but it's also the loss of the grandchildren I'll never have,
Mm.
the daughter-in-law I'll never meet, right? All these
The secondary
loves.
grief, right?
That's
So you
right.
had that primary grief of losing Darius, and as you named, the secondary grief is the grandkids that you'll never have, or the daughter-in-law.
That's right.
Yeah. You recently shared something, Kelly, on your social media that truly it just stopped me in my tracks, and I wanted to mention it today and for you to maybe elaborate a little more on this. But you wrote that someone asked you how you're so calm, like nothing bothers you, and you responded, because everything I was afraid of happening happened. And I just felt like that was such a powerful statement. So can you talk about what you meant by that?
Yeah, as a nurse, particularly as a nurse that's worked in ICU and ED, as you mentioned, I've seen the worst, right? I have seen people life interrupted dozens, hundreds of times. I've witnessed that. And there's a point in your mind when you know your kids or someone you love is entering that high risk time, right?
Right.
You know that when you're learning to drive, I'm from Ohio. And so you think about snowstorms and kids learning to drive and that. And two of my children had been in car accidents. And so you think about that. You think about, kids and violence and the risk of that. In late teenage years, early adulthood. You think about the risk of the rising rates of suicide, the rising rates of drug use, right? And so when you get through all of those things, when you are blessed enough that those things didn't visit your family, you begin to feel there's a false sense of comfort.
Yeah.
There really is. And so I had spent a lot of time with a lot of rules in my house, a lot of rules and a lot of structure because I'd seen so many things, right? And then they kind of age out of that. Then you get this diagnosis, but he manages through it. I've seen most patients that I've seen have lived lives with epilepsy, with it, right? And by and far, it's not a fatal disease. I mean, that's just right. And so I wasn't as concerned about that, right? I was concerned about all these other factors, societal factors, and just the age risk. And so when he risked out of those things, you get this false sense of comfort, and suddenly you recognize that we're not in control.
Right.
You're not in control. And so this thing that you begin from the time your children are young, preparing to protect them from, preparing the rules, the structure, the guardrails, those are important things to do. But what I've learned in hindsight is nothing is more important through those than making memories, than making sure you say the thing that you want to say, to having the call. You know, Darius died on January 3rd. That Christmas was his birthday. And we had gotten much of the family together for that, and Darius did not come. And I sent him a Merry birthday text. Love you, kid. But the house was crazy. It was full. There were more than a dozen people in the house. So I didn't call. And I didn't talk to him on his last birthday. Those are things you can never get back. And so when I talk about that thing happening, the thing that you prepare for, the thing that you never want, it did. It showed up in my life. And so that's changed the way I move. It's changed fear, right? I've learned that we can't control things. What I can control is this minute.
Right.
And so I called my younger son today. And I'll see my daughter later on today. And my husband and I had intentional time last night. In fact, I went to pick up my phone during our movie time, and he literally looked at me and said, "Be present." And I love that, right? That's, first, I appreciate the reminder.
Exactly.
But I am walking through life because I will not have more regrets for things I didn't say. I won't have more regrets for relationships I didn't foster. I didn't give the time and attention that they need to. And so there is a sadness that goes with that regret, but there's a peace that comes with knowing that you've reframed the way you move through life with intention and presence that is often not seen in our society.
Absolutely. No, that is so true. And, first just releasing the guilt, right? I think a lot of times when we're grieving, we always think about, well, what could I have done differently? So just releasing that over time. So when we think about support, when you're going through that grief journey, people often, they rally around us immediately after a loss, but that support often fades. What did you experience as you were going through that grief journey and the loss of Darius? Did you receive support? And can you talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, there's two things that I think are important to bring up here. So I'll talk about professional and personal.
Okay.
Professionally, I have to tell you, I work for an organization that is incredible. They are employee-centric, team member first, and I experienced that. When my son died, I had outreach from dozens, probably triple digits people, right, checking in. There were so many gifts here. It took us months to go
Wow.
through the cards, the gifts, the piles of things. More than half a dozen people flew to Ohio to attend his
Mm-hmm.
services with us. I had months to recover. My job referred me to a grief counselor who specialized in parents who've lost children. I had it all.
That's amazing to have that support.
It was incredible. They helped me build this business. I mean, you want to talk about going all in. That's what I experienced. Darius's father, my ex-husband, on the other hand, had to go back to work in 2 weeks. And they lived 3 minutes away from each other.
Wow.
Best friends. Darius had just bought a house, which they were planning to rehab together. They were going to be roommates. Best friends. He went back to work 2 weeks later. They had to send him home the first day because he couldn't get through the day. So one of my key things that I talk about is grief competence in the workplace.
Yes.
People come back to work and on the outside, you look the same, right? You may be a little thinner, right? But I mean,
right. Because you're not eating. You can't get up out of bed.
Right,
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no like physical, demonstration of the pain that you're in. Right.
Right.
But you are a different person.
Yes.
You are not the same. I will never be Kelly of January 2nd, 2023. And you know what? I love Darius too much to want to be. The absence of his life should make me different. It has, and it should. And so employers need to understand that the way you welcome a bereaved person back into the workplace, someone who's lost a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a child, a friend, a pet, right? All of those things, there are accommodations that are important for them, and leaders need to be competent around that. So I'll say that first. Professionally.
Absolutely. Yeah. I work in human resources, so I see it firsthand where, most companies for bereavement leave for an immediate family member, you get 3 to 5 days.
That's right.
What is 3 to 5 days for the loss of a parent, a spouse, a child?
That's right. The funeral's not even done.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling that here we are offering 3 to 5 days for someone that is an immediate family member.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So major opportunity for us.
Yes.
Professionally, I was well taken care of by my
amazing.
leaders. When I came back to the workplace, there was some awkwardness, but my leaders took good care of me. Personally, my husband is a rock. I mean, I thought this was a good man before. The way he has walked with me and held me and just has been amazing. But the reality is there's a lot of people around. There's a lot, and then there's not.
Yes.
And Mother's Day 23 would have been the first time I really knew that. You have no idea how commercial Mother's Day is until Mother's Day is painful. And I dreaded it for weeks, dreaded the day, because I was going into the day thinking about being a bereaved mom, right? You know this. People say it all the time. I can't imagine losing my kid. A, that's not comforting.
Yes, exactly.
And B, it's true. I know that it's true because I was a mother who had living children, and now I'm a mother who has a child who's not living. So I know I could not have imagined it. So it's redundant because it's factual, right?
Right.
But I dreaded this for weeks, told my husband, tell the kids, don't bother me that day. I'm not doing it. I'm not being performative. And my sister decided that she and my mom and niece were flying in. We are coming to be with you. If you don't want to do anything, then we'll all do nothing.
Right.
If you want to do something to get your mind off it, then we'll all do something, right? But whatever it is, you are not doing this alone. And they came. And my daughter came over, my son's girlfriend, and we spent that weekend talking about, I was not a bereaved mother. I was Darius's mom.
Yes.
And it changed the whole way I experienced it was tough. We cried, but we laughed and told stories and jokes and we thought about how ornery he was in high school and all of the things, right? We were able to live in him.
Mm-hmm.
And that made the whole weekend that I had been dreading for weeks tolerable. And so my neighbor had lost her husband just a couple of months after Darius. They'd been married 50 years. So I decided his birthday was coming up to offer her a similar experience, memorabilia, stories about Mike. And I left a wind chime on her doorstep on his birthday. So the next day I saw her, she said, Kelly, come in. You won't believe what someone left me for Mike. And this woman in her mid 70s had climbed up on a ladder and, her back lived on a lake, had hung this wind chime. And she said, Mike talked to me all night long.
I love that.
And I hadn't told her at the time that it was me, but their anniversary was the next month and I did it again. And then I just started doing it for people, right? Because what you don't realize until you've experienced a significant loss is that people live through loss every day.
Yes.
Right? 8,500 Americans die every day. Someone you care about is losing someone significant to them. So I started just delivering these curated, customized gifts on these emotionally triggering days. And universally, people were overwhelmed because everyone else had moved on, right? Nobody calls the mom who's had a stillbirth on Mother's Day. Nobody does that. Nobody remembers the baby they didn't hold, right? Nobody thinks to call you on your wedding anniversary. Your kids may, right? But most people don't even know that day.
Exactly.
Right? So they're not realizing that you're going through this pain. And I started realizing that doing this was making such a difference to people. And so I literally, motivated by the legacy of my kid, who was just a brilliant young man, beginning his entrepreneurship, I decided I'm going to build a business for him about him. Wow. And I dropped out of a PhD program. I enrolled in an MBA focused on entrepreneurial studies, and we built Timely Presence with the idea that we would make it easy for people who care and love about someone but don't know what to do in their lives.
Right.
And we would show up for them all year long on the emotional calendar of grief with heirloom quality, customized gifts that say your loved one mattered and you are not alone. And that's exactly what we did.
And I love that so much because you're right. Most people, after the funeral, that's it. Most people go about their lives and they don't remember those hard dates. But the person that is grieving have to live with that month after month, year after year.
Right.
So I love the story behind Timely Presence. Can you talk about some of the other gifts or meaningful ways that Timely Presence shows up for those and continue showing up for that year after loss?
Yeah. So because I'm a bereaved mother, I'm just going to talk about the package we have for parents. It's called the Legacy Collection. And so with the Legacy Collection, what we would allow the gift giver to do is via a one-time enrollment, sign up. And you could take care of a grieving family for an entire year. We'd send a gift shortly after the funeral. And that first gift is a wooden engraved memory box. After a funeral, what you realize, again, these are things I learned because I lived them, not because I knew them before. What you realize is you have all these things. You have the obituary, you have cards, you have photos that you've pulled out, you have a flower or two from the service, all these, and you have nowhere to put them. That's meaningful, that's curated and beautiful. And so we send that shortly after a funeral. We send a memory box. We send a wind chime on the birthday. Favorite gift, because it's interactive. Darius talks to me all the time. Some days I'm like, what? What do I need to know? What's happening? Favorite gift comes on the birthday. On Mother's Day, blue's Darius's favorite color. We send Tiffany blue preserved roses. It's about 40 roses. They live at least 5 years, on Mother's Day. And on Father's Day, we send a self-care kit because men are histrionic for not giving good care. And so we force them to do that. We send a gift during the holiday season. So whatever you celebrate, be it Christmas, Hanukkah,
Mm-hmm.
Ramadan, Kwanzaa, we've got it. We send you a gift during that season. And then for the 1-year anniversary of the loss, we send a gorgeous 3D crystal photo plaque with your loved one's face engraved and gorgeous remembrance message. So the thing about our gifts is they are heirloom quality and none of them are sad. We've played with materials so they reflect light and joy. They can be in offices. They can be on fireplaces. Nothing about them is sad or grief heavy. It's all a reflection of the love and the life that existed. And so we tried to pick things that were very light and love adjacent. And all year long, they come on the dates that matter the most.
I love that. So much love and thought has been put into the gifts. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And, I do love the wind chime, the story behind that. I actually have one that was gifted to me after the passing of my grandmother. And it wasn't something that I ever thought of before, but after I received that gift and then my first time hearing this wind chime, just talking, right? I'm like, she's here. Like, hey, grandma.
It's such right? It's just like a soft, I call it a soft kiss, right? It's just like this reassurance that I'm okay and you are too.
Right.
And you are too.
Yes. And it was just so calming. And I just I laid on my deck because it's on the back deck and just listening to it. So I love the thought and the love that's put into the gifts that are offered to those families in that year time frame.
Yeah. So we have different collections for different losses. We also have 2 new services that are going live on our website. So one is partnership with organizations. So, I've been a nurse, but I've now been an executive for 10 years.
Oh.
And so I know leadership. I know what it means to support your employees. And so we have built a proprietary framework called the Presence Framework that really teaches organizations how to show up for people who are grieving. And it's based on 8 pillars, but really in 3 categories. And I call them the 3 R's. Number 1 is regulate, right? So watch what you say. I hate that I have to tell people that, but I do.
Yes.
Watch what you say and how you say it, right? And so, there were times that people were trying to comfort me about Darius and they would fall apart. I ended up comforting them. How does that work? It would have been better for you to say nothing, right? So regulate yourself. Make sure that you've done the work of knowing what is grief appropriate language. And we teach that, right? So regulate. Number 2 is respond. Do something, right? Ignoring it is not a strategy.
Yes.
Do something. And so we have some tips for organizations around what they can do that aren't costly, that aren't laborious, just small things to show we acknowledge and recognize the burden you're carrying right now. And then 3 is just remain. And what that means is don't stop, right? And so someone's had a significant loss. Don't talk about it for 2 weeks and not address it when Thanksgiving comes up.
Right.
And, their husband's no longer at the table. So we teach tactics on remaining. And so this presence framework, we're partnering with organizations to teach them how to show up better. And the last thing that we're kicking off is I have met, you think you're the only one. You know this. When you have a loss, you think it's only you. You know that. But I have found there's a whole community of people that are navigating losses, significant losses, and who have done the hard work of leaning in and getting through the most acute phase. But they're now looking for meaning making, right? What do I do? How do I start a podcast? How do I start a foundation? People do walks in honor of people. So they start businesses. And so we have a cohort called the Arise cohort. And it is for high achieving women that are looking for a way to turn their loss into legacy. And so We are working with them to help them build whatever
Right.
their tribute to the one they love is. And so that's timely presence, and the three things that we offer, rooted in experience, I think supported by the knowledge that came from both my clinical expertise and later becoming a grief counselor. And so I hope that we will continue to show up and make a difference for people in those meaningful moments.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for one, sharing your beautiful son, Darius, with us, timely presence, and your framework that you were close to introducing to everyone. Thank you for your honesty, for your vulnerability, and just for trusting this space with your story. So before we
inviting me in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we close, I would love for you to just share with our listeners where they can connect with you and learn more about timely presence.
Yeah. So our website is thetimelypresence.com, thetimelypresence.com. And then we're on all major socials. So I am very active on LinkedIn. I am just Kelly Edmondson there. But Timely Presence has a LinkedIn page. We have a Facebook page, and we are The Timely Presence on Instagram. And we are there all week long with sharing messages around my story, education for people who want to show up and do better, and messages of hope for people who are going through the darkest days. I've been there. I understand. And we want to help support people on the journey.
Right. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.
If this episode resonated with you, do me a favor, share it, send it to a friend, a family member, somebody in your circle who needs to hear that healing and purpose are still possible for them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, because trust me, we have more incredible guests and conversations coming your way. And if you haven't already, like and leave us a review. It helps more women find this show and join this community. And until next time, keep highlighting your healing.